He had lived a life most people only dream about. A man who had started from nothing and built his empire with sheer determination and sharp intelligence. Despite all the wealth and luxury surrounding him, he had always been careful about whom he trusted. Friends often joked that he trusted his business partners more than anyone else. But after years of focusing solely on work, he decided it was time to open his heart again. His life had been busy, full of meetings, deals, and endless responsibilities. Yet, in the quiet moments, he sometimes felt an emptiness that money could not fill. That was why, when he met her, he felt something different. She was not part of his business world, not someone trying to impress him with her status or connections. She seemed genuinely interested in knowing him, the real him. Her smile was warm, her laughter light, and she had a way of making even the simplest conversations feel special. Friends and family noticed the change immediately. He seemed lighter, more relaxed. He talked about her constantly, describing the little things that made him happy, the way she listened intently when he spoke, the care she took in preparing meals, the unexpected gestures that showed she was thinking of him. For someone who had lived behind a shield of caution for so long, this felt like a fresh start, a second chance at happiness. The first months of their relationship were like a dream. Weekends were spent exploring quiet towns, enjoying dinners without any distractions, and taking long walks where they could talk about life, dreams, and hopes. She asked about his childhood, his ambitions, and even about his past mistakes, and he felt comfortable sharing something he hadn't done with anyone in years. She encouraged him to laugh more, to see life from a different perspective, and he found himself looking forward to every meeting, every conversation, every moment spent together. Yet, even in this blissful period, subtle things caught the attention of some of his loved ones. She often asked questions about his personal finances, not in a casual way, but with a focus that seemed oddly persistent. She would inquire about insurance policies, trusts, and how certain assets were divided. Friends shrugged it off, thinking perhaps she was curious because she genuinely wanted to understand his life and responsibilities. He himself paid little attention, blinded by the joy he felt when she was around. His teenage son, however, was not as easily convinced. Growing up observing his father's caution and wisdom, he had developed a keen sense for people's intentions. From the beginning, he had liked her polite and cheerful demeanor, but there were moments that made him uneasy. He noticed how she subtly redirected conversations whenever money or family matters were mentioned. Sometimes, she would offer to handle small financial tasks or suggest changes in household routines that seemed unnecessary but gave her more control. Though he had nothing concrete, a small voice inside him kept warning that not everything was as it appeared. Despite these faint warning signs, life moved forward. He proposed to her in a small, intimate ceremony, wanting to keep the moment personal and meaningful. The wedding was beautiful, though understated. Close friends and family attended, sharing in what they hoped would be the start of a happy chapter in his life. His son stood beside him, smiling for the cameras, yet a shadow of concern lingered in his eyes. He didn't know why, but instinct told him to pay attention. The honeymoon period after the wedding was magical. They traveled to scenic places, enjoyed long walks on beaches, and spent quiet evenings talking about the future. She was attentive, affectionate, and seemed to take pleasure in making him feel loved and appreciated. Friends who saw them together often commented on how happy he looked, and even the son, despite his caution, couldn't deny the warmth she brought into their home as they settled into married life. She gradually became involved in day-to-day matters. She decorated the house beautifully, managed social events, and seemed eager to integrate into his life fully. To him, this was a sign of commitment. To his son, it was a point of observation. He began keeping an eye on her actions quietly, noting whenever she seemed to overstep boundaries or display unusual interest in matters that weren't her responsibility. Even with the son's subtle concerns, he chose to trust her. After all, he had never been happier. He wanted to believe in love again, wanted to embrace the chance to live fully, without suspicion clouding every relationship. He allowed himself to relax, to laugh freely, and to share more of himself than he had with anyone in years. He talked about plans for new businesses, philanthropy, and family trips. confident she would be there to support and enjoy the journey alongside him. But behind the charm and smiles, small patterns began to emerge. She would sometimes ask why certain accounts were separate, or who had access to particular investments. She showed keen interest in estate planning and inheritance matters, always framing her questions as curiosity or care for the family's future. His son, watching from the sidelines, noticed these inquiries, sensing that they were more than innocent questions. He decided to be vigilant, though he didn't want to alarm his father unnecessarily. Life continued with its usual rhythm: busy mornings, work commitments, evenings spent together, and weekends for relaxation. She became a part of family routines, attending school events, family dinners, and casual outings. She was charming, engaging, and seemed to have a genuine connection with everyone. It was easy for anyone to overlook the subtle intentions that might have been hidden beneath the surface. He felt grateful to have found someone who appeared so loving and devoted, someone who could bring joy and companionship into his structured, often lonely life. Evening talks became their favorite time. They would sit together in the living room, sharing stories from the day, planning future trips, and laughing over small anecdotes. He felt a sense of normalcy he hadn't experienced in years, a feeling that life could be beautiful beyond business success. The son, while still cautious, appreciated seeing his father happy. He wanted to believe in her as much as his father did, but knew he had to remain attentive. Just in case, small gifts, thoughtful gestures, and expressions of love continued to strengthen their bond, or at least it appeared so. She complimented him often, encouraged his hobbies, and even participated in his charitable activities. Everyone around them assumed that the man had finally found his perfect partner. Friends admired their chemistry, colleagues envied the balance he seemed to have found, and strangers saw a couple radiating happiness and contentment. But as joyful as these moments were, the son could not ignore certain things that made him uneasy. He noticed how she sometimes made offhand remarks about who might inherit what, or how she seemed unusually curious about his father's legal advisors and estate planners. There were times she suggested reviewing financial documents, insisting it was for the sake of clarity and organization. These moments were brief and easily dismissed by anyone else, but the son felt they were pieces of a puzzle that didn't quite fit. Despite this, the father continued to trust her completely. He wanted to believe in her sincerity, and her warmth made it easy to let go of any lingering doubts. He laughed more freely, slept more peacefully, and shared more openly than he had in years. For him, this was a period of rediscovery, time to reclaim not only love, but the joy and companionship that had eluded him for so long. Friends and family often commented on the positive change in him. He smiled more often, showed patience in situations that would have once frustrated him, and even indulged in small, spontaneous adventures. It was clear to everyone that she had brought happiness into his life, yet the son remained silently observant, documenting small patterns and behaviors that hinted at a deeper story, one that might surface in unexpected ways, even with the growing unease in his son's mind. The father continued to embrace life with optimism. He focused on the present, cherishing the moments they shared and planning a future that seemed brighter than ever. He was convinced that this time he had made the right choice, that he had found someone he could trust completely. And yet, life has a way of revealing hidden truths at the most unexpected times. And little did he know that the challenges ahead would test the very foundation of the trust he had so freely given. As the months passed, the new wife became more involved in the daily life of the household. At first it seemed harmless. She organized the home, planned social events, and offered to help with small tasks. But the teenage son, who had always been careful and observant, noticed subtle changes. She asked questions that seemed out of place, like why certain accounts were separate, or who had access to specific investments. She would offer suggestions that seemed convenient for her, such as rearranging finances or having certain bills handled differently. To the father, these seemed like small adjustments, signs that she cared about the household. To the son, they were warning signs that something didn't quite add up. The son began to pay closer attention to her actions. He noticed the way she interacted with his father, always flattering him, making him feel special, and praising every decision he made. She seemed to know exactly what to say to keep him happy and focused on her, never on the subtle hints of concern she was planting. The son watched how she managed her time with the father, always ensuring she was present when important discussions occurred, subtly steering conversations toward topics she wanted to influence. The more he observed, the more uneasy he became. Meanwhile, the father remained oblivious. He trusted her implicitly and enjoyed the sense of peace she seemed to bring into his life. He loved seeing her at social gatherings, always elegant, always gracious, always drawing compliments from everyone around. Friends often commented on how lucky he was, how perfect their match appeared. He believed he had finally found someone who truly understood him, someone who could stand beside him in life and love. He didn't want to see the shadows his son noticed. He only wanted to believe in the joy she brought. The wife's involvement in household and financial matters gradually increased. She began suggesting changes to the way certain assets were managed, often framing her ideas as helpful or necessary for the family's future. She would casually mention topics like inheritance planning or property investments, as if seeking advice from her husband, but always with a subtle push toward her own influence. She became part of every major conversation, subtly directing decisions in ways that seemed beneficial but were actually self-serving. The son grew increasingly concerned. He knew that he needed to be cautious. Confronting her too early might provoke her to hide her intentions more carefully. He started documenting everything he noticed, keeping a mental record of her questions, suggestions, and the timing of her actions. He compared them with past incidents where he had seen manipulation at play, looking for patterns. Every time she asked about a particular account or suggested a change in family matters, he took note. His instincts told him that the father needed protection, even if he didn't fully understand the scope yet. At the same time, life for the father seemed normal. He focused on his work, his social life, and the moments he shared with his wife. He trusted her completely and often spoke about how happy he felt. Weekends were spent enjoying hobbies together, short trips, and evenings filled with conversation and laughter. He even began including her in business discussions, believing that her perspective was valuable. Little did he know, these moments of trust were exactly what she needed to embed herself deeper into his life. Friends and acquaintances noticed changes as well. Some commented on how attentive she was, how involved she had become, and how seamlessly she fit into the family. Others quietly wondered if she was moving too quickly, but the father's enthusiasm and trust overshadowed any concerns. Everyone around him saw a man who had found love again, unaware that not all motives were pure. Only the son had the growing awareness that beneath the charm, there could be something more calculated at play. Small incidents continued to build a pattern. She would gently suggest that certain investments be consolidated, that bills be handled differently, or that family money be placed under joint management. She framed these suggestions as practical and caring, often praising the father for his wisdom and making him feel appreciated. She was careful to avoid confrontation, always smiling, always charming, always ensuring that her intentions appeared harmless. This careful approach made it even harder for anyone except the son to see the danger. The son also noticed her interactions outside the family. She spent time with lawyers, accountants, and financial advisors, often claiming to seek guidance for the family's benefit, yet the son paid attention to the way these meetings were conducted, noting her interest in estate plans, property documents, and insurance policies. She asked questions that seemed unnecessary for her role, questions that could easily hint at future exploitation. The son felt a responsibility to keep his father safe, even if he had to do it quietly and carefully. Despite the growing unease in the son's mind, the father continued to enjoy life with his wife. He laughed freely, shared more about his dreams, and allowed himself to be vulnerable in ways he hadn't been in years. He told stories about his childhood, his mistakes, and his hopes for the future. Believing that she was genuinely interested, he felt a connection he had longed for, a sense of companionship and understanding. For him, these were moments of rediscovery, of finding happiness after years of caution and isolation. The wife, recognizing the father's trust, continued to deepen her involvement. She became a regular presence in all aspects of family life, from casual dinners to formal events. She offered opinions on home improvements, vacations, and family routines, always in a way that seemed thoughtful and considerate. The father appreciated her input, often agreeing with her suggestions, and felt grateful for the sense of partnership she provided. The son, however, remained watchful, noting every small detail that hinted at her. True intentions, life moved forward with a rhythm that seemed normal to everyone except the son. He observed her carefully, noticing how she would steer conversations toward topics of money and influence. Always framing her ideas as helpful or caring, she was strategic in her approach, ensuring that her actions appeared innocent while subtly positioning herself to benefit from future decisions. The son began to understand that her charm was a tool, a way to gain trust and control over his father's life. Despite his observations, the son faced a difficult challenge. He had to balance his concern for his father with the risk of revealing his suspicions too soon. He couldn't confront her without evidence, and he couldn't let his father see his worry. So he continued to watch, to document, and to prepare for the moment when he could expose the truth safely. Every detail mattered, every conversation was analyzed, and every action was remembered. The father, meanwhile, remained fully immersed in the joy of his marriage. He focused on the love and companionship he felt, the happiness of having someone to share his life with. He believed that he had found someone who truly understood him, someone who cared for him and his family. The son could only hope that his observations were wrong, that perhaps he was misreading her intentions. Yet deep down, he knew that something wasn't right. Gradually, the father began to involve her more in his work, sharing insights and inviting her opinions. He trusted her completely, believing that her presence brought balance and perspective. She, in turn, took advantage of this trust, subtly influencing decisions and learning more about his resources, connections, and plans. Her charm and attentiveness made it nearly impossible for anyone else to suspect her motives. Only the son remained vigilant, determined to protect his father from potential betrayal. The days and months passed, filled with a mixture of joy and unease. The father laughed, loved, and shared more openly than he had in years. The wife continued to integrate herself into every aspect of life, always careful, always strategic, always charming. The son watched silently, knowing that the peace and happiness of his family depended on his ability to see the truth before it was too late. He couldn't yet reveal what he suspected, but he prepared himself for the day when the father would need to see the real story, when the trust he had given so freely would be tested in ways he could never imagine. In the meantime, life appeared normal. Social events were attended, friends were entertained, and the family maintained the image of happiness. The father remained blissfully unaware, trusting fully in the love he believed he had found. Yet behind the smiles, the careful observations of the son hinted at a deeper story waiting to unfold. A story that would soon reveal intentions hidden beneath charm, affection, and apparent devotion. The stage was set for revelations that would test the very foundation of trust, loyalty, and family bonds. The son had reached a point where he could no longer ignore his instincts. Every small action, every carefully worded suggestion, and every subtle question from the new wife had started to form a pattern that could not be overlooked. He had to find out what she was truly after. At first, he doubted himself. Maybe he was being overly cautious, imagining intentions where there were none. But the nagging feeling in his gut, the quiet alarm that refused to go away, kept him vigilant. He began observing her more closely, noting how she interacted not only with his father, but also with other people around the house. She was always charming, always helpful, always attentive. Yet there were moments when her focus on money and control seemed almost calculated. She would casually ask questions about legal documents, insurance policies, and assets, framing them as curiosity or concern. He knew that, in the wrong hands, knowledge could be dangerous. The son decided to gather evidence, not out of distrust for his father, but to protect him. He carefully documented every interaction, every unusual question, every request that seemed out of place. He kept track of her meetings with advisors and lawyers, noting the topics discussed and the way she steered conversations. He even observed how she managed small household finances, looking for patterns that might hint at manipulation. Each detail, no matter how minor, could be important. It wasn't easy. He had to be subtle, ensuring that she never suspected he was watching so closely. He remained polite and accommodating, never giving away his suspicions. Yet inside, he felt a growing urgency. The longer he waited, the more influence she could gain, and the harder it might become to protect his father. He knew he had to act with patience, but also with precision. He started paying attention to her online activities as well. He noticed how she interacted with certain financial forums and social media platforms, always showing a keen interest in wealth, inheritance, and legal loopholes. While nothing was overtly illegal, the focus and consistency of her interest worried him. He began taking screenshots, saving messages, and keeping careful records. It was becoming clear that she was not just curious, she was planning, and the son knew that uncovering her plan was crucial. At the same time, he observed her behavior within the house. She was always present during discussions about money, family decisions, and important life choices. She had a way of subtly guiding conversations, asking leading questions, and suggesting options that would benefit her position. Her charm was undeniable, and she knew how to keep his father pleased and reassured. The son realized that her influence was growing, and with it, potential risk to their family. Despite the growing tension, life for his father appeared calm and happy. The father laughed more, shared more, and seemed to trust his wife completely. He spoke of future plans, business ideas, and family trips, always including her in every conversation. The son admired his father's ability to find happiness again. But he knew that the trust being given so freely could be taken advantage of. He felt a heavy responsibility to act, to be the invisible guardian who protected the family from unseen harm. The son began to discreetly speak with staff members, asking subtle questions to see if they had noticed anything unusual. He didn't want to alarm anyone or create conflict, but he needed to understand her full scope of influence. Some staff members mentioned small things requests that seemed odd, questions about accounts or access that didn't align with her role, and moments when she took control of situations unnecessarily. These observations confirmed the son's growing suspicions. In addition, he started keeping an eye on her interactions with external advisors. He noticed how she would ask leading questions about wills, trusts, and investments, always framing them as curiosity or concern. She seemed to know just enough to gain insights without raising suspicion. The son realized that if left unchecked, her influence could grow into control over his father's assets, potentially putting the family at risk. He also reflected on her emotional influence over his father. She was attentive, affectionate, and constantly praised him, ensuring that he felt valued and loved. This emotional connection made it even harder for anyone else to question her motives. The son understood that her charm was a tool, a way to maintain trust and deflect suspicion. He knew he had to remain vigilant, documenting everything while maintaining the appearance of normalcy. The son began to organize the information he had gathered, creating a clear timeline of her actions and interactions. He noted patterns, repeated questions, and moments where she had subtly influenced decisions. Every small detail, he realized, could be crucial in revealing the truth. He also prepared himself for the difficult task of confronting his father with the evidence. Knowing that it would be a shocking and emotional moment, despite the growing unease, the son continued to live his daily life as normally as possible. He went to school, participated in family activities, and interacted with his wife as if everything were fine. Yet, beneath the surface, he was always observing, always analyzing, always preparing for the moment when the truth would have to be revealed. He understood that patience and careful planning were key. One misstep could alert her and make the situation more dangerous at the same time. He began to strengthen his own understanding of legal and financial matters. He researched estate laws, inheritance planning, and asset protection strategies, ensuring that he would be ready to explain the implications to his father. He wanted to approach the situation calmly, rationally, and with undeniable evidence, so that his father would understand the severity without feeling betrayed or panicked. As the months went on, the son's observations became more detailed and focused. He noticed how she would position herself strategically during important discussions, always ensuring she had a voice and influence. She seemed to anticipate questions and had ready answers that made her appear competent and concerned. Yet, the son could see through the facade, recognizing the underlying strategy to consolidate influence and control. Each observation reinforced his determination to act. He also reflected on the subtle ways she tried to isolate him from certain conversations. She would steer discussions toward topics that excluded him, or try to redirect attention away from her questions and suggestions. The son recognized this as a tactic to prevent him from seeing the full picture. He remained vigilant, quietly documenting everything and looking for patterns that would help reveal her plan. Throughout this time, father continued to trust his wife completely. He shared stories, laughed freely, and involved her in every aspect of his life. The son admired his father's ability to embrace love and trust again, but he also felt the weight of responsibility. He could not allow blind trust to put their family at risk. He knew that his actions, careful observation, and eventual revelation of the truth would be necessary to protect the family. The son's investigation became more focused and methodical. He kept detailed notes, observed interactions carefully, and looked for inconsistencies in her stories and explanations. He began to see how her charm and attentiveness were tools used to manipulate and influence. Every compliment, every gesture, every question was part of a larger pattern aimed at gaining trust and control. He felt a growing sense of urgency, knowing that time was of the essence. Despite the tension and careful observation, life continued as usual for the father and wife. They enjoyed outings, family dinners, and quiet moments together. The father remained blissfully unaware of the underlying concerns, completely immersed in the happiness he believed he had found. The son maintained a delicate balance, participating in family life, while quietly preparing for the moment when he would need to reveal the truth. In private moments, the son reflected on the weight of his responsibility. He knew that confronting his father too soon could cause emotional turmoil, but waiting too long might allow the wife to gain more influence. He carefully considered each step, weighing risks and consequences, and ensuring that he would have undeniable evidence before taking action. His focus was unwavering. His goal was clear: to protect his father, the family, from potential betrayal. As the son continued his discreet investigation, he began to see the full extent of her subtle strategies. She was constantly building influence, positioning herself as indispensable, and ensuring that she was involved in every aspect of the father's life. Her charm, attentiveness, and strategic thinking made her appear trustworthy and loving. But the son could see the pattern behind the facade. He knew that exposing her plan would require careful preparation, patience, and undeniable evidence. The son also began to anticipate potential reactions. He considered how his father might respond to the revelation, how the wife might react if confronted, and the emotional impact on the family. He prepared himself for every scenario, ensuring that he could present the truth calmly, clearly, and convincingly. He understood that the stakes were high and that his careful planning could prevent a serious betrayal from unfolding. Throughout this process, the son remained determined and focused. He continued to observe, document, and analyze every interaction, ensuring that nothing was overlooked. He balanced this responsibility with his daily life, school, and family activities, maintaining the appearance of normalcy. His dedication and careful planning would eventually lead to a moment of truth, where the father would finally see the reality behind the charm, affection, and seemingly genuine intentions of the new wife. Life continued with its usual rhythm, filled with laughter, shared moments, and the illusion of happiness. The father remained fully trusting, the wife continued her strategic influence, and the son silently prepared for the moment when the truth would have to be revealed. Every detail mattered, every observation was recorded, and every pattern was carefully analyzed. The son's patience, vigilance, and determination were the family's unseen shield. To protect the son had finally gathered enough evidence to act. Every subtle question, every request, and every unusual interaction had been documented. He had screenshots, notes, and a detailed timeline that showed a clear pattern of manipulation. Now, he faced the difficult task of confronting his father. He knew it would be shocking and painful, but he also knew that it was necessary to protect the family. He chose a quiet evening. When the house was calm and his father was relaxed, they sat together in the living room, and he began to speak carefully, explaining that he had observed certain behaviors that seemed unusual. He presented the evidence in a calm and organized manner, showing the patterns, the questions, and the interactions that suggested the wife's intentions might not be genuine. The father listened in disbelief, his mind struggling to reconcile the loving, charming person he trusted with the calculated actions laid out before him. The father's heart ached as he went through the documents. He felt betrayed not only by the deception but by his own trust. He had wanted to believe in love again, and the realization that it had been manipulated was a hard blow. Yet, as he reviewed the evidence, he began to see the truth in his son's careful observations. Each note, each screenshot, each timeline entry confirmed what his instincts had failed to sense. The wife's charm had been a mask, hiding intentions that threatened the family's stability. The son explained how she had strategically positioned herself to gain influence, how her questions about finances and legal matters were designed to gather information, and how her charm was used to keep the father focused on the perceived love and devotion. He emphasized that the actions were subtle, designed to appear innocent, and that without careful observation, it would have been impossible to notice. The father began to understand the depth of the deception. Together, they discussed the next steps. The father, though shocked, was grateful for his son's vigilance. He realized that without the careful observation and documentation, the consequences could have been severe. They decided to take immediate action to protect their assets and ensure that the wife could not take advantage of their trust. Legal counsel was consulted, and plans were made to secure finances, properties, and other important matters. The process was not easy. Confronting someone you once trusted is emotionally draining. The father had to navigate feelings of love, betrayal, and disappointment while also making rational decisions to safeguard the family. The son remained supportive, helping his father understand the evidence and the necessary steps. Together, they formed a strategy that balanced emotional healing with practical protection. They also considered the impact on the household. Staff and friends would need to be approached carefully, ensuring that the situation was handled discreetly. The father wanted to maintain dignity while addressing the betrayal. He understood that public knowledge could create unnecessary drama, so he focused on controlled private actions. The son, having observed the wife's subtle manipulations, knew that any confrontation had to be carefully planned. The father began to notice the subtle ways in which the wife had manipulated situations. Her charm, attentiveness, and strategic involvement were all part of a calculated plan to gain influence and control. The realization was painful, but it also reinforced the importance of vigilance and observation. He admired his son's careful attention to detail and was grateful for the protection that had allowed him to avoid potential disaster. The son and father worked together to secure all necessary documents, accounts, and legal matters. They ensured that access to assets was controlled and that any potential loopholes were closed. They consulted with trusted advisors, ensuring that every step was taken with precision and care. The father's trust in his son deepened as he realized that vigilance, patience, and careful observation had prevented a serious betrayal as the father came to terms with the situation. He also reflected on the lessons learned. Trust is essential in relationships, but it must be balanced with awareness. Love and charm can mask intentions, and vigilance is necessary to protect oneself and one's family. He felt gratitude toward his son, whose careful observation and documentation had preserved the family's safety and well-being. The son, too, reflected on the experience. He had learned the importance of patience, observation, and careful planning. He had also seen the value of supporting family members through difficult revelations, offering evidence and guidance without judgment. The experience strengthened his bond with his father, creating a foundation of trust, respect, and mutual understanding that would guide them in the future. Confronting the wife was the next step. They approached the situation with caution, ensuring that all actions were legal, respectful, and effective. The confrontation was direct but controlled, presenting evidence clearly and calmly. The wife's reaction varied from surprise to defensiveness, revealing the depth of her intentions. The father remained composed, relying on the preparation and guidance that the son had provided. Through careful planning and clear communication, the situation was resolved without unnecessary conflict. Legal steps were taken to protect assets and ensure that trust could not be exploited. The father regained a sense of security, understanding that vigilance, documentation, and careful observation were essential in maintaining control over his life and family. The emotional aftermath was challenging but manageable. The father and son supported each other, processing feelings of betrayal, disappointment, and relief. They spent time rebuilding trust within the household and reestablishing routines that reinforced security and stability. The experience strengthened their relationship, highlighting the importance of observation, preparation, and mutual support. Life gradually returned to a sense of normalcy. The father focused on work, family, and personal growth, applying the lessons learned to future interactions and relationships. The son continued to play a supportive role, ensuring that vigilance and careful observation remained a part of their family practices. Together, they had navigated a complex situation, emerging stronger, wiser, and more connected. The father also reflected on the importance of listening to instincts and paying attention to subtle cues. While he had trusted fully, he recognized that awareness and observation are essential components of trust. He felt gratitude for his son's careful attention, understanding that vigilance and patience had prevented potential harm. The son, having successfully revealed the truth, felt a sense of accomplishment and relief. He had protected his father, preserved the family's well-being, and learned valuable lessons about careful observation, strategic planning, and emotional support. The experience strengthened his confidence and reinforced the importance of acting with patience, clarity, and evidence. In the weeks that followed, the household adjusted to the changes. The father rebuilt trust in a more cautious and informed way, while the son continued to play a vital role in observing and supporting family matters. The lessons learned from the wife's manipulation served as a guide for future relationships, highlighting the importance of vigilance, communication, and careful observation through the entire ordeal. The bond between father and son grew stronger. They had faced deception, navigated complex emotions, and emerged with a deeper understanding of trust, love, and family loyalty. The experience had tested them both, but it had also reinforced the importance of careful observation, preparation, and mutual support in maintaining the security and well-being of their family. After the confrontation, life slowly began to return to a sense of calm. The wife had been removed from all positions of influence, and legal measures ensured she could not manipulate or harm the family further. The father and son focused on rebuilding trust, restoring the household, and moving forward. The experience had been difficult, but it also brought valuable lessons and a renewed sense of unity. Between father and son, the father spent time reflecting on the entire situation. He realized that trust, while essential in relationships, must be balanced with careful observation and awareness. He understood that charm and affection can sometimes mask intentions. Vigilance is necessary to protect oneself and one's loved ones. He felt grateful to his son for the careful attention, patience, and dedication that had safeguarded the family's well-being. The son, in turn, reflected on the growth and responsibility that came with his actions. He had learned how important it was to observe carefully, document accurately, and act strategically when necessary. He had also learned the value of emotional support, approaching difficult situations with calm and patience. The experience strengthened his confidence and deepened his bond with his father, creating a foundation of trust that would guide them in the years to come. Together, they began to restore the household to a sense of normalcy. Daily routines returned, family interactions became warm and joyful, and the atmosphere in the house felt secure once more. The father focused on work, personal growth, and family time, while the son continued to play a supportive role, Ensuring that vigilance and careful observation remained a natural part of their lives, they also reflected on the importance of communication. Open and honest conversations, careful listening, and shared understanding had been crucial in navigating the crisis. They realized that maintaining trust within the family required constant attention and clear communication. These lessons would serve as a guide for future interactions, helping them to recognize warning signs, make informed decisions, and strengthen family bonds. The father also became more aware of the people he allowed into his inner circle. He maintained trust, but with careful observation, ensuring that relationships were genuine and intentions aligned with the well-being of the family. He continued to enjoy companionship, love, and support, but with a heightened awareness that balanced trust with vigilance. This approach allowed him to embrace happiness without compromising safety. The son continued to observe and support the family, always maintaining a careful balance. He participated in daily activities, school, and social events, while also being attentive to patterns and behaviors that could signal potential risks. His role had evolved into one of both protection and guidance, providing a steady, watchful presence that reinforced the security and stability of the household. As time passed, the father and son also focused on strengthening emotional connections. They shared stories, experiences, and reflections, deepening their understanding of each other. The crisis had highlighted the importance of trust, vigilance, and mutual support, and they worked to ensure that these principles were central to their lives. Their bond, forged through challenge and tested by deception, became a source of strength and resilience. They also began to explore new opportunities for growth and joy. The father returned to work with renewed focus, while the son pursued education, hobbies, and social interactions with confidence and curiosity. Together, they engaged in family activities, trips, shared experiences that reinforced their connection and created lasting memories. The lessons learned from the crisis became a guiding framework for their actions, helping them to navigate future challenges with wisdom and awareness. The household atmosphere gradually transformed into one of warmth, security, and trust. Every member of the family felt the impact of the lessons learned. Understanding the value of careful observation, patience, and strategic action, the father, while still open to love and companionship, approached relationships with a balanced perspective, ensuring that trust was given thoughtfully and awareness was maintained. The son continued to develop his skills in observation, critical thinking, and strategic planning. He applied these skills not only to family matters, but also to personal growth, school, and social interactions. The experience had instilled a sense of responsibility, resilience, and confidence that would guide him throughout his life. He understood that vigilance, patience, careful action were essential in protecting the well-being of those he loved. As months turned into years, the father and son continued to grow stronger together. The lessons learned from the betrayal shaped their approach to life, relationships, and decision-making. They maintained a balance of trust and awareness, ensuring that the family remained secure, harmonious, and resilient. Their bond, strengthened by shared experiences and challenges, became a foundation for continued happiness and mutual support. The father also reflected on the importance of gratitude. He was thankful for the son's vigilance, for the support of trusted advisors, and for the opportunity to learn valuable lessons about trust, awareness, and family loyalty. The experience, while challenging, had reinforced the importance of careful observation, patience, and thoughtful decision-making in maintaining a secure and loving household. The son, having successfully protected his father and family, felt a sense of accomplishment and responsibility. He had learned that vigilance, strategic planning, and careful observation were essential tools in safeguarding loved ones. He also recognized the importance of emotional intelligence, calm communication, and thoughtful action in navigating complex situations. These lessons would guide him in all areas of life, providing a foundation for future growth and success. Together, the father and son rebuilt not only their household, but also their relationship. Trust, once tested, was strengthened through careful observation, open communication, and shared experiences. They developed a deeper understanding of each other, greater appreciation for family bonds, and a renewed sense of security and well-being. The experience had shaped them into a team, resilient, vigilant, and united. In the end, life returned to a balanced rhythm. The father focused on work, philanthropy, and family, embracing joy with a thoughtful awareness of potential risks. The son continued to observe, support, and grow, confident in his role as both protector and companion. The family had endured deception, navigated complex emotions, and emerged stronger, wiser, and more connected than ever before. The lessons learned from the betrayal remained with them, serving as a guide for the future. They understood that trust must be balanced with vigilance, that love and charm can mask intentions, and that careful observation and strategic action are essential in protecting family and relationships. These principles became a natural part of their lives, ensuring that they could face challenges with wisdom, resilience, and unity. Through it all, the bond between father and son remained unshaken. They had faced deception, navigated uncertainty, and emerged with a deeper understanding of trust, loyalty, and family. Their shared experiences became the foundation for a secure, loving, and resilient household. The lessons learned would guide them for years to come, reinforcing the importance of careful observation, patience, and mutual support in maintaining happiness, security, and family unity.